that continues to have that stranglehold on the street and limiting access to oil for the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And yeah, we saw the effects of it on oil prices, on commodities, on, movements of, vessels over the Hormuz, streets, and also the the countries, the Gulf that are affected, that they said they don't want to be part of this war, but still are under fire by Iranian, bombs and missiles, like, the Emirates, Bahrain and Kuwait are under attack. So it's really expanded war with a big scale that it's really hard to see the end of it at the moment.
Lena, thank you very much for joining us. Lena Sinjab, who's BBC's Middle East correspondent, to us from Lebanon. So it is comic relief season once again. You might be following the exploits of Greg James and others. There's that mammoth cycle that he's doing. The 2025 edition raised more than £34 million, but it seems to be getting harder to convince us to part with our cash for charity. A major study suggesting fewer and fewer people are given to charity. Donations in the UK down by £1 billion last year. Well, talk to Philippa Cornish, who's the director of the charity's Aid Foundation, which was behind that report. Philippa, good morning. You monitor donations, don't you? Have you seen this before? Perhaps also linked to times when economic conditions are tough for people, when people have got less money to part with.
Good morning. Yes, so we've been doing this research for several years now. In fact, we've got lots of 10-year comparisons in this year report. And in 2025, what we saw was the first time that the total amount went down in 5 years. So whilst donor numbers have been dwindling, which has always been a concern, this year actually we also saw the amount go down. So, like you said, from 15.4 billion to 14 billion pounds.
Right. So do you know where that is coming from? There's a suggestion, I think, that younger people are maybe less likely to donate money to charity.
So I think, as you said, affordability is definitely a challenge and has been for several years, particularly post-pandemic. So the research showed that just under half of people cite affordability as the reason. And yeah, when we look at different demographics, it looks like women tend to do more things for charity than men, and like you see, participation increases slightly with age. So if we think about affordability, it kind of makes sense that obviously puts more of a pressure on young people.
And what does the charity sector do about this? Has there been some bad press, could you say, from some of the maybe troubling news headlines that we've seen over the last decade or so? Money going to charity CEOs, perhaps, that people might think is disproportionate, concerns about how charitable money is being spent. But do you think there are some questions there as well about how money is being spent?
Well, trust is definitely an important factor in giving. So we definitely see where people have higher trust in charities, they tend to give more. And again, when we looked at the reasons that people didn't donate, trust about charities using the money came up for about just under 20%. So it's definitely a factor. I suppose what I would suggest is the charity sector is huge. There are 160,000 charities across the UK, and less than half of them, just under half of them have an income of less than £10,000. We're not talking about enormous organisations. And then in the cases where there are very large charities, they're tackling quite serious problems, and it's difficult to do that with a few volunteers. But if people do have concerns like that, a lot of charities publish their figures. There's lots of things you can think about a charity. You can check their website. You can find out a bit more about them, ask some questions, and if something doesn't feel right, obviously give elsewhere.
It's something that the sector takes read about. That might be the obvious question, but are you thinking that this might be a blip and that things might improve? We know that, inflation was meant to be heading in downwards direction, although the events of the past weeks might be threatening slightly, but, is it the hope that next year might be better again?
It's definitely something we hope for, so we really advocate for the British culture of giving. I mean, £14 billion is still a significant amount of money, right? That's a lot of generosity out there. So what we're hoping to do is just renew that culture of giving that we're kind of known for. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. I mean, we've encouraged people to talk about their giving. It looks like that is the big motivator for people to give. So hearing about it from family and friends, or seeing something local to the community having a real impact. So that's another thing we'd encourage charities to do, really, is sort of cherish their donors, give them reasons to become an advocate for them, and encourage other people to give. And hopefully we might start to see that trend, which really has took a big hit in the pandemic, start to see that turn around again.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us this morning, Philippa. Philippa Cornish, Director of the Charity Music Foundation.
Cross Scotland with the latest news and the sense of the world, music and culture.
On digital radio,
BBC
and your smart speaker.
Play BBC Radio Scotland.
It's 6 o'clock. Good morning to you. Welcome to Radio Scotland Breakfast with Martin Geiger and Laura McKeever. Good to have you with us this morning. We are reporting very specifically this morning on a recruitment crisis for resident doctors in Scotland. Claims that there's a shortage of specialist training posts, and that's causing a bottleneck, which is forcing some young medics to consider quitting positions and venture elsewhere.
And as the war in the Middle East enters its third, the UK government expects to unveil a multi-million plan to help households struggling with surging energy costs.
Nothing good about the sport as we win some Paralympics. Of course, and bringing back just one medal, that's shot. Five for the country. Get up with us this morning. We are here till 9. This is a conversation in this program. We want to hear from you. 80295 is the text number. If you want to drop the text, 08085 9295 below. It's a number for a chat message or a voice note. Go on, get your voice on the radio this morning. We want to hear from you. Let's take this over to you.
Thanks, Martin. Good morning. President Trump has questioned the future of NATO with yes allies. To help you from the sheet of news, the Gulf shipping lane has been effectively shut by Iran, shipping off around a fifth of global oil supplies. Greg Kennedy.
In an interview with Financial Times newspaper, Mr. Trump argued that countries who benefited from the shipping channel should play a part in protecting it. It would be very bad for NATO if he got no or a negative response. But the US has been very sweet with NATO countries over Ukraine, and they should now run their help, such as providing minesweepers.
Meanwhile, Secure Starmer is due to set out financial support for households struggling with the cost of heating oil. In response to the war in the Middle East, the oil is not covered by the energy price cap, and some customers have seen their bills double. Resident doctors in Scotland are warning of a recruitment crisis. Radio Scotland Breakfast has seen figures showing the number of medical assistants and junior doctors coming through the system has increased in recent years, but the number of specialist trained GPs hasn't kept pace. The Scottish Government says most doctors do eventually secure a training post. Dr. Michael Vincey of Scotland emerged Australia in South Africa.
Yes, often that with lots and lots of junior doctors, lots of diploma doctors who are ready to go into training, they just cannot get a post, and they're stuck in this kind of limbo process, which is really frustrating, and a lot of them are just getting fed up. Some people have left medicine, some people are doing a job that they didn't really still get into, but it's still so competitive. It's really just putting a strain on the whole system.
And so 6,000 kilograms of litter was picked up on Scotland's beaches this year. That represents a fall of 23% since 2024. The Marine Conservation Society said that there have been 23,000 pieces of sewage-related litter, such as wet wipes, tampons and cotton buds, were collected and recorded.
In sport, Rangers boss Danny Rose says there are 8 finals to go, only race for the Premiership title. There were 1-1 over St Mirren's leads the Ibrox side, close to within 3 of leaders' halves. Celtic are 2 behind Newcastle. American golfer Cameron Young is £3.4 million richer this morning. They're after winning the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass. Scott Robert McIntyre finishing 4th. And Paralympics GB Chief Demission Smith says there's lots to be positive with the Games overall. This despite the team securing just 1 medal, well short of the pre-Games target of 5.
Kirsty's got the weather.
Thanks, Martin. Good morning to you. Well, a fair number of showers around this morning, especially in the west. The best of the sunny spells will be across the northeast. And then all change during the afternoon. Cloud will thicken for most, followed by outbreaks of rain moving in from the west. The rain will be persistent and at times heavy, particularly across the Western Isles, Skye, the West Highlands and Argyll. And this will be a blustery day of weather. Brisk southwesterly winds for many, touching gale force at times with Western Isles and the Northern Isles. Temperature-wise today, around 7 to 10 Celsius. Not that forecast.
On the Radio Scotland breakfast travel in Carson off the M90 is partially locked, heading south from Junction 5, Darnley Bridge to Junction 4 for Kelty. In for keeping, strong winds are affecting the Fourth Road Bridge. In Brentford Street, there's been an accident and an oil spillage, blocking one lane with congestion on the A7 and 37, heading south from Linwood to Johnston. In Glasgow, Union Street is closed from Gordon Street to Argyll Street. Gordon Street and West Nile Street are also shut. And there are still no high-level train services running at Glasgow Central Station.
Minutes past 7 at the time, so we're focusing quite a lot of our attention this morning on an issue, well, it's been described as a recruitment crisis facing Scotland's resident doctors. Here's the situation. You train, do a medical degree for 5 years at university, then you go and become a resident doctor. We used to call them junior doctors. That takes you a couple more years of training, and then you decide what you want to specialise in. You might be a dermatologist, you might want to be a surgeon, you might want to go into gynecology. You apply for a training post in there, and that's where the bit of bottleneck is beginning. There's evidence we have discovered that, for example, if you want to do GP or public health, 167 applicants every one training place. So a big issue there, and that we're being told this morning was causing a lot of young doctors to drop out of the medical profession altogether, or maybe head off to sunnier climes and a different life. We have been hearing that one person who did that, Dr. Mike Rosinski, who is a Scottish doctor now living in Australia. He spoke to us in the last hour.
The government they'll get a job eventually, but it's not the job that they went to university for. It's not going to be the job that they've studied their whole life and sacrificed a lot of their free time in order to do.
So we're going to be speaking to Neil great about that in an hour from now. In the meantime, we're speaking to a couple of people who are about to make those choices just in a couple of minutes. If you are involved in this, or somebody you know is involved in this, get in touch. 80295.
We're also talking about energy prices this morning. We're into week 3 now of the war in the Middle East and the impact for everybody to see, particularly the surge that we've seen in the cost of home heating oil.
What's necessary is for the United Kingdom to stop almost taking some decisions on this.
Well, that was the First Minister, John Swinney. He was on Sunday show here at BBC Radio Scotland yesterday. Prime Minister has been taking these calls. The Chancellor has been talking about it too, and it seems the Minister is going to talk today about action. He's expected to unveil a multi-million-pound support package for families with the sharp end of this new energy crisis.
It's a busy kind in the Premiership title race. In some ways, nothing has. In other ways, though, well, everything has changed. Shot come cross, comes in, back post, goal! Come on, have the lead! After 17 minutes! Closing, Celtic, Rangers winning. Newcastle side are still clear at the top, only nil though by 2 points with 8 games to go. 8 cup finals, according to Rangers boss Danny Rule.
Yeah, big drama coming up in Scottish football. Talking of drama, we're going to have more on the Oscars. It's another big night for Paul Thomas Anderson's one battle after another.
What a night. You guys, let's have a martini. This is pretty amazing. Cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Loads on that. Lots of late football as well. Sport generally, the rugby, the golf, every weekend.
The Six Nations, you think about what the campaign over 6 weeks, and we had it won on the last kick of the game. That's sensational stuff.
Yeah, Dundee rescued a point in Dundee Derby with the last kick of the game yesterday. Extraordinary drama. What was your big weekend? What was the big W in your weekend? I was at Kilmarnock watching my side being beaten. That was a big L. What's your W of the weekend?
Your big W was getting home, though.
Yeah, well, exactly. Logistics. That's why I like to do football. Get away early. 80295. Okay, it is just coming up to 10 to 7. So, to our main story, the warning: more and more of Scotland's resident doctors are considering moving overseas or quitting the profession completely because of a shortage of those specialist training places they need to take their careers to the next stage. This programme, Radio Scotland Breakfast, has heard concerns from a number of young doctors who got in touch with us to share their fears for the future. Alex is in the middle of her 2 year. Sam is in his foundation 1 year. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. Listen, Alex, let me come to you first. So, the foundation years are those years you do to effectively become a qualified resident or junior doctor, as we used to describe them. Is that right? So you've done your 5 years at medical school, so your medical degree, and then you do your 2 years training, and you're finishing those now, and then you choose what you want to do next. What specialism you go.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm still in the middle of my foundation 1 year just now. We do, so in total throughout the 2 years you do 6 4-month rotations. So you rotate through a variety of different specialties. So you get a little bit of a taste of different things to kind of help make up your mind about what you want to do, maybe in training.
And what are you thinking you might want to do at this stage?
So I've known for quite a long time that I want to do orthopaedic surgery, which is unfortunately one of the more competitive specialties to get into. So last year, I think, for the west of Scotland at least, there were 6 training positions. And almost 300 people applied, so quite a competitive specialty to get into.
So when you look at that, how do you rate your chances? What gets you in? How do they decide who gets one of those 6?
So it depends, obviously, on the specialty that you're applying. But for orthopaedics, at least, it's a points-based system that gets you an interview, and then if you get to an interview, then it decides whether or not you get in. But in terms of what gets you the points, it's a variety of different things. So any extra certifications that you have on top of your primary medical degree. So that includes postgraduate exams, if you've done any other degrees prior to medicine. Things like research, if you've got involved in any research or abstracts, publications, any conferences you've been to present at, any teaching that you've got involved in, any extra things, any operations that you've gone to help in. So it's quite a lot to be doing on top of a full-time job working as a doctor.
So all the way through your training, you're thinking in the back, I've got to build up a CV here. I've got to get myself. I mean, it's a 50 to 1 shot. There's 50 applicants for every position. I've got to get myself to the front of the queue, and that's all got to be done effectively in your kind of spare time, like with you showing a bit of extra initiative. Did you always want to be an orthopaedic surgeon? When you first when you qualified to do a medical degree, did you think that this is where that's going to take me?
No, not at all, actually. I only really realised at the very end of medical school, which is a little bit frustrating, but it gives me less time to kind of work my way kind of to rack up those points. But it's also, well, you know, if you're fresh out of high school, you're 17, 18, when you're school, so it's a big decision to make.
And if you can't do that, what will you do?
If I can't get into the beginning? I've got a few backup options, so if I don't get in first time, I will take a year, kind of like an FY3 year. You're still working as a doctor, but you're not always becoming a consultant. I am looking into moving to Australia. I'm going to be completely honest, because if I need to do a year where I'm working, but I'm not necessarily progressing my training, it is very appealing to move to a country where you are paid more. The working conditions are better. I'm very, very lucky in the sense that I have friends over there that I could stay with. So, to me, it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Do you say that with any sense of regret, or dare I suggest that you know, you've gone through training here, presumably all that, and then you get the skills and this year?
Yeah, for sure. I think there is quite a lot of guilt there. I think the NHS is a fantastic system. It's not perfect, but there aren't many countries in the world that can offer free healthcare, so to be a part of that. And obviously we've trained here for free in Scotland. We don't pay for university, so yeah, it does give me quite a lot of guilt. But if I can't get into a training program for a job I want to do here, and also the other jobs to kind of
for several years, they're becoming more and more difficult to get here as well. So, yeah.
And what about your peers? What about people who are going through with you? I mean, if you were, I don't know, there's no exact science to this anecdotally, is it a kind of common thought among kind of cohorts that Australia is a decent option?
Oh, for sure, definitely. I mean, it's not exactly close by, so there are a lot of cons that come with it. The main one being so far away from family, but there are better work-life, better working conditions, and if we can't get a job here, it is kind of the next best option. Australia, New Zealand, it's not like America or Canada where you need to do more entry exams. Our UK medical qualification is recognised over there, so it's easier to get jobs over there. So that's kind of why Australia and New Zealand are the more popular options for us.
There'll be people listening to this bristling, thinking you've done all that training, you're not going to do it. You might not get to orthopedic surgery this year, you might get in next year or the year after, or you might just have to do a different branch of medicine you don't fancy quite as much. But look, invested a lot in you because we wanted you to come up here and help you and you're picking up your skills and disappearing. What would you say to them?
I would say it's very disheartening to put in a lot of time, effort, and money into trying to get a job that you are absolutely by no means guaranteed to get. And yeah, our work is also being wasted, and we're just trying to live life and get through life just as much as the next person.
All right, well, listen, thank you for your honesty and all the best to you. I hope you get the vocation that you want rather than the emergency option of disappearing. Dan, good on you sitting there patiently listening to all of that. What, just situation.
Yeah, hello, thanks very much for having me on. So I am also an academic of 511 currently training at the King Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow. Also halfway to rest on the same salad.
First foundation year for too, yeah? Yeah. And what are you thinking you want to do?
So I'm hoping to be anesthetic after I apply to the training process.
And how described is that happening? Do you know the figures?
I don't know the figures, but they're going up every year as there's more medical students graduating, but not more posts being created.
Right, and constantly looking through the anesthetics, really goes 6,770 applicants for 539 posts, so 12 and a half applicants per place. This was the most recent figures that we have, so last year's figures. Are you optimistic?
I think I'm realistic. I know plenty of brilliant doctors that are a few years ahead of me that make fantastic initiatives, but have been trying very hard to get posts, yet are reapplying year after year. In 3-4 years, they still haven't got a post. So I know that that's the reality of the situation. I'm optimistic, and I'll try my best to get that, but there's certainly no guarantees at the moment.
Is your work on medical certificates you could become an anaesthetist, or is this something that's just kind of you could have an open mind?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I went into probably thinking of doing and for setting up medical school, but really enjoyed my placement in anesthetics, so I'm swayed towards that.
Right, I was going to say, anaesthetist would you become a GP, but the bad news here is that general practice is 167 applicants for every training you can do, so it's a bit of a bottleneck. What do you think of the system, Sam?
I think the system could do with a lot of work. I mean, ultimately, the NHS is about providing the best care possible to patients, but at the moment, we're trying to train more doctors, and we're doing that with increasing the med student places, but because consulting for the GP is a pipeline, and we're increasing the medical student places, but not increasing the training posts accordance with that. So there's just a growing bottleneck that's causing this massive backlog, and it's actually improving the service.
And we're going to have your day, like I said, on in about 45 minutes time on this program. I know we're not. We're not going to have 15 minutes to on this program to talk to him about all this. What do you think?
I mean, there's actually pretty good involvement with the government. There's some good comments out there that they're listening to the problems, they're aware of them. I mean, I would just encourage him to have a look at the system as a whole and try and plan holistically, increasing numbers proportionally to medical students being trained, not with each and every relation.
If you can't get on to anaesthetics, Sam, if you can't do that and then you think so you have to take a year back for a year, then come back again next year, you can cover that again, or maybe something else. If you find that you're backing up a few years and you just don't get to where you want to be, what do you think you're going to do? Alex is saying she's very seriously thinking about heading to a company you would do, or would you stay here? You know, she's going to persevere. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a really option going over there. My mother is currently a medical student in Glasgow, and not only do I have to plan for myself, but I have to plan for her. And getting a job after medical school is still a massive uncertainty. You know, it's what the main focus are, and my mission to now randomised. So basically knowing where you're going to end up the next year is a huge uncertainty. So I don't know. I'm pretty committed to anaesthetics, so I'm willing to only apply year after year. But I would just similarly to Alex, get a fellow post, which basically means I'm employed as a doctor but not progressing anywhere. So my career there. If that doesn't happen, I don't know what I would do. Then fear of unemployment, which is probably having unemployed doctors is probably no use to the NHS. So it's certainly something I want to do about.
What about those people who just find it funny that you say, look, you embark on medical because there's no guarantee. Nobody said, congratulations, you qualified to study medicine, or whatever you studied, this is your pathway to becoming a successful, what it means to be surgeon.
We're providing a healthcare service for the country that's funded by the government, and they're doing that to provide this service. So, I mean, it used to be that you would almost guarantee the job as a doctor, which was the case. But as these numbers are growing, it's certainly not. And even about a cloud perspective, you would think that's ridiculous. You're getting trained as a doctor, but there's not jobs there. Yet the NHS are still strained with understaffed. So why aren't happy further than with the increasing number of medical students?